Thanks for joining us for Coffee and the Word, where we talk about the Bible, everyday life, and parenting principles. We've been talking about being Spirit-filled, and today we continue the conversation of what it means to be the Spirit-filled husband. Okay, so yesterday we dove into this verse that says to nourish and cherish our wife like we would our own body.
Can I just read it?
Sure.
Verse 28 and 29 of Ephesians 5. If you've been with us, we've been there for a while. So, verse 28. So husbands ought also to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ also does the church.
So we've been talking about love, unconditional love, laying down our life for our wife. That's our responsibility, and serving them. Then he comes to give this picture of, it's our own, like we would our own body. And so yesterday we looked at nourish, or providing for our own body. Like I wouldn't just go out and live my life and never put food in it and never provide for it,
You're going to eat.
Yeah, and so I'm going to go and provide for my wife, because that's what I would do to serve her, to lay down my life for her.
And you're not like out eating like $100 lunches and then coming home and feeding us Blue Box mac and cheese.
Blue Box mac and cheese is the worst thing in the world to me.
Okay, I think it's really delicious.
Okay, let me just say this.
It does glow under black light though, which
Yes,
is a little
that's
bit
what
concerning.
I was going to say is, so last year at camp, we were looking for things that glow, and we do this thing called Crud Wars, where we have this giant food fight. And we'd always done it in the middle of the day, and we're like, what if we did it at night? So
epic.
then we Googled food that glows in the dark, or how to make food glow in the dark. And Blue Box mac and cheese.
Not off-brands. You need to get Kraft.
Yes, Kraft Blue Box mac and cheese. This is not an endorsement for them in any way. They do not support us in any way.
Nor does Starbucks, Olive Garden, all these coffee companies. That
Which we are drinking Olive Garden again.
Yes, it's
beautiful.
just
I'm
so
grateful.
warm
I'm
and cozy.
grateful.
You used that cup yesterday.
Oh.
It's
Oops.
okay.
Anyways,
It glows
Blue Box
in the
mac and cheese on its own, without adding anything, glows in the dark.
Yes, but I
don't know
like
what
the
that-
taste.
No, it's disgusting.
I don't feed it to Brian. But there's this idea, the way that you
We got lost.
that you nourish your own body
Yes.
is the way that you nourish your wife. Like,
Well,
it
I don't
wouldn't
want you to nourish me the way you nourish your own body with Blue Box. I would like you to nourish me with real food, please.
Okay. We typically cook from scratch in our house. And I don't eat Blue Box mac and cheese anymore for myself, but I do let the kids eat it.
Again, why?
They really like it.
I understand. Change the palate.
But it wouldn't be fair for you to be giving yourself the best of the best and then leaving the scraps for your family. It's kind of the direction that I'm trying to go here. If you get off the Kraft mac and cheese.
Okay.
So you can't go have $100 lunches and then come home and feed us, 15-cent containers of ramen, which again, my kids really like.
Yeah, they do.
Noodles. But it's way better when you make it.
Yeah, they like when I make homemade broth. Like, put the ramen noodles in.
It's true. Okay, so
okay,
that was nourish, but today we need to look at cherish, which is different.
Okay. So
than
cherishing. And if you didn't get to watch yesterday's Nourish, I challenge you to go back and get the context, but cherish. And so like I told you yesterday, if you go and open a tab and Google this right now, but cherish really means to protect. So we had the provide aspect, we had the protect, nourish, cherish, provide, protect. Protect, care for, hold dear, or keep in one's mind.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Does this mean that men can go out and buy guns right now because they have to protect their wives? Some people might be like, yes.
Oh, some men might try and use this as a manipulative moment.
Honey, I'll be right back. I need to go buy a gun because I need to cherish you. The Bible says so.
Well,
Is that what it means?
No.
Physical safety?
I mean, there is an aspect of physical protection, yes.
Like you should lock the door for your poor wife at night for bedtime.
Okay, sure.
He doesn't lock doors.
Yeah. So if you ever want to come in our house, the only time it's locked is at night.
When I lock it.
Yeah.
This is online. We shouldn't say that. We lock our doors all the time.
But anyways, the protection. You're going to protect your own body. Like I'm not going to go around and let people harm my body. There's that just natural instinct that God's put in us that if somebody goes to harm us, these walls go up and we're going to protect ourselves.
And even like environmental things, like you're like going to keep yourself warm. You're not going to let yourself get frostbite. You're not going to dehydrate yourself.
Blue box mac and cheese.
Okay, you know what? It's a treat.
But anyways, there's this protection aspect.
Like I said, live marriage counseling.
That is wired in our soul. Like, there's like the man's movie and the woman's movie, the chick flick, and that kind of aspect thing.
Although usually we like opposite of that.
No.
Okay.
I just don't like action movies. It's not that I don't like, I like Gladiator, best movie of all time.
You can tell us your favorite genre of movie.
Yeah, Gladiator is the number one movie of all time.
Okay.
But, there is this innate thing within us to protect. And, we need to, like it's a responsibility to cherish you, for me to protect you. And then, in that definition of cherish and protect is really, it says to keep in one's mind. That idea of cherishing, to keep in one's mind. This is an area that men struggle big. Because men, part of like what wires us to be able to be non-emotional in moments.
Successful leaders.
Yeah, is that we also have this wired ability to compartmentalize.
Yeah, you might hear like the phrase out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, and so like I'm really struggling to be in a stay-at-home work environment because it's hard for me to compartmentalize. Like I'm trying to be in our bedroom, which is an office right now, and I hear the kids yelling and screaming and just even having fun, like not even getting mad at each other. And like it's hard for me to shift into that gear because often in my life it's easy to just like, okay, I shut the door, walk out the door.
You leave the space.
Yeah,
and now you're this role.
Yes.
It's like we made a video once of the 3 Bryans.
Yes.
And it's literally like 3 distinct personalities, but they are all 100% you.
Yeah.
But it's that compartment of life that you're in. If you're working with teenagers, if you're working with grown adults, if you're working with me, like, I've had people ask me about like your annoying youth self, like, how can you be married to him? I'm like, I'm not married to that guy. Like, that's not my Brian. But men do this. It's not just you. It's this compartmentalizing.
There was this time in our life where the people around me were very sarcastic and antagonistic and things like that. And I came home not shutting that off, not compartmentalizing it, not cherishing you. And I started to treat you like I was treating those guys. It was a bunch of guys that I was friends with, and I was being like I was with them with you. And you're like, you can't do this to me.
You can't treat me like that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not one of your work buddies.
Yeah.
Let's turn that off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't handle it. But, I think men have that ability, and it's a blessing because they have a lot of burden and responsibility, God-given.
Yeah, the benefit of it is I can leave work at work.
Yep.
Now, that has become a very big challenge for us today with, these wonderful things that we all hate the communication device of. The fact that emails are constantly, phone calls are constantly coming through. And we do need to just like put this on the nightstand or put it in a drawer or leave it in the car.
And not touch it for a certain amount of time.
And get it away so that, we can compartmentalize that. But we do have the ability to just like shut that out, leave it there.
Now, what's the danger of this if you don't do, if you don't cherish your wife?
So what it says is, what it says is to keep in one's mind. And so cherishing is literally like keeping you in my mind throughout the day, all day, every day, wherever I'm at. The reason that I'm providing, like thinking about the reason I'm providing. While I'm at work, the reason I'm at work is to provide for you. I have a good friend who used to work for a corporation that had him travel a lot and things like that. And when he was in that job, there was this mindset: what happens over state lines stays
in that state.
Yeah, like, so it almost
What
like
happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
yeah, it was like this
Yeah.
this freedom to sin as long as you were like in another state or something like that. And that's the mentality of like these men compartmentalize. Like, well, I'm not in Michigan, so
Or,
I don't have to think about my wife. I can,
or
go
what
have an
they
affair.
don't. Well, and even if it's not that brash and
Yeah.
like it's like sinful, it's just like what they don't know doesn't hurt them, or like you
Oh,
have this like
yeah.
different work life that they're not part of, or
Right.
or you're carrying burdens that they don't know you're carrying, and
yeah,
they
men-
can't pray for you.
Yeah,
Or
men
vice
struggle with that
versa.
because of that need to provide. Often, men will get laid off or lose a job or something like that, and it takes them days, weeks, months before they'll even tell their wife because they feel so embarrassed. And it's
Right. Or if like even if you just had like a bad like work review or like it's something like that could be heavy and hard, and you compartmentalize and shut it off and
Right.
think like that's not going to affect them, but meanwhile like your wife and kids don't know what's wrong with dad.
Yeah, it's putting this wall up of silence that
Yeah.
ends up being, and you say like, "What's wrong, honey?" Nothing. I'm fine.
Yeah, and something is there.
Yeah.
And,
I'm
and,
fine means everything's wrong. I just won't tell you.
And then vice versa, you can't compartmentalize and shut out your wife's burdens. Like if you're bearing me in mind, like you don't like stay at the office till 8 p.m. just because you need to get work done, because you're thinking about like, oh, she's got the kids and she needs a break,
Right.
and she
And I
probably
wanna
made
get
dinner
home
and
to lay down my life. Yeah.
yeah, like there's that side of it too. Like it goes that way, and really this like mutual thing that
That's
we
all.
see over
Yeah.
and over
I mean, that's
again.
what we're talking about overall from verse 21 is subject to one another.
But the weight of cherish, definitely. I think it's not that husbands have to do it more. I
No.
think that concept is true for wives too. But we don't struggle to do it the way that our husbands struggle to do it, because you are wired in a way that kind of opposes naturally cherishing.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Where women are like, I just want to savor this time with you. And my kids are not going to snuggle me much longer. Like we have that natural tendency in us because we're wired differently.
Right. And I mean, when men feel emotions, they don't always want to communicate them or fear
Know
this
how,
natural
or-
communication and things like that. And so that causes these walls to go up and them to crawl in a hole and hide that they're feeling, and we have to get to the place where, we're treating this again like it's our own body. Like I'm going to protect her, care for her, watch for her, keep her in my mind at all times, wondering what's going on, wondering how the kids are treating her, wondering if things are happening. Now, at the same time, we have to be careful, again, with these things. Some men will take this to the other side of protection and
have to know like everything that's going
yeah,
on,
and be tracking their wife and tracking their kids and
so
this-
consumed by like
and having security cameras all around their house, not to protect from burglars, but to watch what's going on. Like that's an unhealthy level, of what's going on in the home.
and that it's like a lack of trust, even if you don't realize it,
and a lack of trust in the Lord too.
Yeah.
Like that, there is protection, and then that's not protection. That is control.
right. So
And-
I have to say, when it comes to like cherishing, and that like I think you're way better at cherishing me than I am of myself.
okay.
Like you can very quickly sense like when I need a break or when something is too much, when I'm not doing well emotionally, where sometimes it takes me longer to like
always
realize.
takes you longer. There's no sometimes.
It takes me longer to realize it, and so I think there might just be an aspect of husbands have the ability and the gift to see that for their wives, and
Like discernment.
yeah, and not to just turn that off and think like,
Mhm.
well, I'm just gonna hope for the best. Like you look for ways that you can meet my need or anticipate my need for my own mental health and emotional health. So that's what I think is interesting about Cherish. When
It's
you're
not
talking
just
about
danger.
protection, it's not just physical.
Yeah.
There's emotional, there's spiritual, there's mental, like, you know.
There's social, too.
Yeah.
There's another one.
Yeah, like, oh my goodness, you do this for me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You'll say, like, hey, you need to watch that relationship.
Yeah,
You know,
because...
maybe the motive there is not good, or you need to, you know, watch, like, this might look bad.
Because men have, not that women don't, but men have this discernment factor within them.
The ability to recognize the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, and it's because we're not as emotionally driven. So while, you know, there's always positive and negatives to every personality type and every gifting. And so, like, while men tend to be more black and white and cold and have less emotion and they get a bad rap for that, it also provides them the ability to be discerning.
Right.
And what is it? Objective versus subject. Like,
right.
like they can
be more objective.
They can look at it and say, yeah, that's not right because of X, Y, and Z.
Right. Like, I would consider myself a pretty good judge of character. Usually I can tell, like, okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as a woman, I come behind and I want the best for the person. Even if my judgment says this might not be good, I still want to hope for the best, or, like, you know.
You give them a shot.
Yeah, where you're like, no.
Right.
You're gonna be a doormat here, or whatever it is.
Well,
like,
and then there's even
protection.
balance, because I'm always, sorry guys, this sounds bad, but I'm always like, the heart of man is deceitfully evil. Just like Jeremiah 17 says, okay.
Everyone is evil.
And so, like, she has to soften me and say, like, give him a chance.
Right.
You know?
You still have to love them like Jesus would. So, you know, you do that for me socially. You do it for me emotionally. It's not just this. I think you could probably step up your game with, like, the physical, like, locking the door. You know, that kind of protection. But it's not.
Trust in the Lord to protect you.
It's fine. I don't feel in danger. I'm not super crazy about that. But,
no.
You know, it's not just this physical protection. I think that one is natural for men. Maybe emotional protection is not. And then I think certainly spiritual protection is also not. Like, that is foreign to us.
Well, because that's something we have to learn. We have to get where, you know, John 16:8 says he's convicting us of righteousness, sin, righteousness, and the judgment to come. And so we need to, as spiritual leaders, be, you know, looking for Satan who roams around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour, and listen to the Holy Spirit as he, you know, shines the light and shows us the way. Right. And like we looked a couple days ago at exposing the darkness and exposing the deception. You know, these are areas as a husband that we are to protect our household from. And that opens up doors for, like, okay, what happens when, you know, a husband sees areas that are deceptions and things like that? How do they go and communicate change and direction and leadership? But we don't have time to answer that.
We're not going to cover that today.
We are going to cover it in the next couple days, though.
Well, and it's not even just deception, like, spiritually. Like, it can even be emotionally. Like, how do you go to your wife and say, I'm sorry, you're a raging lunatic right now, and you need a break? Like, that's not the language to use.
Raging lunatic?
I mean, sometimes I probably seem like a raging lunatic when you're like, okay, get out of the house now.
Okay.
I mean, hopefully not.
No, you're not raging lunatic.
I was making a point that that's
extreme.
Probably not how you would want to communicate it. You might just want to say, like, hey, honey, how's your heart right now?
No,
you know?
What I tend to say is, hey, honey,
go get yourself a coffee and spend some time alone.
Go to Target and come back after the kids are in bed.
Right.
That's what I usually say.
But you might need that language. You might need to garner that, like, conversation and have that trust. Like, you know, when you first started saying that to me, I would say no.
Emotional is, you know, our kids. Husbands protecting your wife from your kids.
Those little monsters that live in my house.
Yeah.
I need you.
Yeah. Yeah, because
I love my children. They're so great. We have good kids, but it's that way. Like, moms can just lay down their lives and be that doormat if husbands don't come behind and protect and cherish.
Right. So I know that there's a lot to this point, and looking at nourishing and cherishing, and
Maybe you're like, wait, what was even the point today?
yeah,
We're getting there.
but it's really to protect. And she mentioned something that we said in there of protecting from emotional, social, spiritual, mental, and physical areas. Those are different areas that you can really focus on with this. And so if you're wondering, like, just kind of analyze those 5 different points.
Yeah,
and,
where's
like,
my self-assessment today?
Right, how am I protecting my wife?
Now,
from-
wives, please don't go take the self-assessment for your husbands and go to him and be like, I'm sorry, you're not living up here.
Right.
If you feel like there is a lack, like, have a humble conversation.
Right, which we're going to get to. In the next couple of days, we're going to start into this kind of breakout of the passage and talk about real practical things we can do when we face the unity factor within our
being
relationship.
on the same page and being one flesh.
We're going to talk about communication, conflict resolution, and other things.
All
We've got a
sorts
whole
of
long
things.
list. So I'd love for you to continue to join us, and thank you for joining us for Coffee and the Word, and we'll see you tomorrow at 8.